I'm not happy.
I don't need Elizabeth Warren or the government giving away my money.
Calling Mike Bloomberg an oligarch has implications in this country that I think are unfair and unreasonable.
I care. That's it.
Makes you think of some rich person who got their money off of oil in Russia, who's taking advantage of a broken and dysfunctional system.
Bernie Sanders saying, the country's corrupt, our system's corrupt. Be careful about that language, Bernie. You know, be careful.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Around the nation, TYT Nation, Jeff Waller here with you. Welcome to the show. Oh, there it is. Okay. We were having some weird issues with setting up the stream. Some of you in the live show, you might have noticed that there was no chat, and then the chat was members only, and then it gets... Look, I don't know why, but when I started the stream, all of those settings were, like, weird. So I don't know if YouTube's messing with things, but I fixed it. So you guys are here. By the way, just to respond to this, AJ Nestor had said TYT member on the app, which apparently doesn't count when you use YouTube. For one, yes. And for two, we're not affiliated with the TYT app. So we're not even on the app. And Young Turf's membership does not help us whatsoever. So we're not connected with the YouTube membership program. Now, I have been flirting with the idea of doing the win-win, signing people up, to support the Young Turks, and also getting some revenue from that. But I haven't figured that out yet. But just to let you know, we are not involved with the Young Turks app. We don't even have an app because it's just me that runs the show. We are a network partner, but we're not in-house or anything like that, and not directly financially supported by the Young Turks main show. So I just wanted to make sure you guys know that. And again, sorry about that whole thing. All right. So we have a lot of stories here today. So we're going to have some fun. We're going to talk about One American News. We've got a Georgia Republican again saying the quiet parts out loud about voting. Apparently, they really, really hate voting, at least when poor people get to vote. So that's a problem for them. We got Jay Carney just getting lambasted online. Fun times. I probably said that wrong, lambasted. We've also got the unemployment news. Oh, boy. Yeah. We've got that, and then Biden faceplants during a Q&A. Oh, what a disaster that is. So we've got that. If we've got time, I'll try to squeeze in the story about Biden's possible VP pick. I know we're talking about that because there's going to be some angry people if that when it gets to that point. So, all right. When's my check from Soros coming? I don't know, man. I keep looking for it. I keep waiting for it. I check the mail every day, and I check my account. It's just not there. It's just not there. I don't understand. I've been shilling for the establishment for so long. I mean, I haven't gotten any money from it. I don't understand. Where's my checks? Where's my checks? All right. I'm all right. Anyway, man. So, why don't we get started here? And so before we do, please like and share the stream. Very important. Also, if you're subscribed and you're wondering, like, hey, sometimes I get notifications, sometimes I don't. you have to ring the bell. You have to ring it twice. So make sure to do that. That way you'll get most of our notifications when we certainly when we go live, or at least you should theoretically. And you should get notifications for at least 3 of our videos each day. We put out about 4 to 5 roughly. So there's that. All right. Anyway, Biden Palin 2029. Oh my God, disaster. Okay. Anyway, so let's start out with OAN. This is fun. It appears that the far-right Trump-loving network One America News has been booted from the White House COVID-19 briefings. So now the White House Correspondents Association decided on Wednesday to remove the network from its seating rotation for daily COVID-19 briefings because its reporter has been violating the rules. Now, what rules is that? That would be the social distancing guidelines. Now, the association's board released a statement citing a policy it created last month that restricts seating at the White House's press briefing room in order to comply with the guidelines from the CDC. Now, under the policy, White House correspondents have been asked not to attend the briefings if they do not have an assigned seat. To quote, ensure the safety of the White House press corps and White House staff during this difficult time. We are writing to inform you that the WHCA board has voted this evening to remove a news outlet from the rotation for a seat in the briefing room. We did this because a reporter for this outlet twice attended press briefings in contravention of this policy. So that is, again, One America News, gone, booted. Now, what's funny is that One America News is the network that fillets Trump even more than Fox News. To put it plainly, right? They love Donald Trump. And so every question asked, and I'll give you an example later, but every question asked by these, so-called reporters is massively weighted. It's a softball for one, and it's designed specifically so that Trump can rage about his enemies in the media, right? And so Donald Trump, he loves One America News. Well, now they're not going to be there during the COVID-19 briefings. So now understand the reason, right? I know there's probably going to be a lot of right-wing outlets like, oh my God, I can't believe that they got banned. It must be the fault of the left. It's the left. The left got him banned. No, this person was clearly not following the rules. Look, they get rotations. The media outlets rotate seats. Sometimes they get to sit in the briefing. Sometimes they don't. I really don't know why you'd want to sit in the briefing. It's garbage. You're not learning anything, and more than likely you're getting pitched from corporations that are loyal to Donald Trump on getting their projects. I mean, or products. See the MyPillow guy, right? And you're not learning anything from it. So look, having this rotating seating, it's a good idea, right? So now this reporter is like, oh, social distancing? Don't care. I don't believe it anyway. It's probably a hoax. I'm going to sit in anyway. Now, HuffPost's Sanjana Karanth writes, Wednesday was the second time that an OAN correspondent attended the White House's daily coronavirus briefing in defiance of the WHCA social distancing requirements. The correspondent, Chanel Rion, violated the policy by standing in the back of the room on 2 occasions when she was not listed in the briefing seat rotation. The board, in its statement, said, quote, we do not take this action lightly. This is a matter of public safety. So look, I get it, right? So now, look, if ABC had done this, right, they were not in the briefing or they were not in the rotation, but their reporter showed up anyway. Look, I would hope that they would kick them out. I mean, knowing Donald Trump, probably. But on any other administration, look, let's be honest, the establishment's going to establishment, right? Especially with the media. So I don't know if they would come up with special rules. I know it sounds like I might be defending OAN for just a second there. But let's be fair. They're more of an independent outlet. Now they're insanely right wing, but they're more independent, right? And I'm independent media, so I kind of understand that it's a little bit weighted in favor of outlets like CBS, MSNBC, or just NBC, sorry, CNN, etc. Right? But still, you don't follow the policy, you're gonna get your butt kicked out, and that's just what happens, right? So now, that said, I do have to remind you the kind of caliber of questions that you get to hear when OAN is part of the briefing.
Do you consider the term Chinese food racist because it's food that originates in China or it has Chinese?
No, I don't think it's
And
racist. I don't think it's racist at all.
On that note, major left-wing news media, even in this room, have teamed up with Chinese Communist Party narratives, and they're claiming you are racist for making these claims about Chinese virus. Is it alarming that major media players just to oppose you are consistently siding with foreign state propaganda, Islamic radicals, and Latin gangs and cartels, and they work right here at the White House with direct access to you and your team?
Quality journalism, folks. OAN in action. Chanel Rios. No, wow. Wow. I mean, is Chinese food racist? And what? What? Yeah, so look, I don't think we're really missing a whole lot from the absence of OAN. All right. Wow. All right, let's move on. I do also notice, by the way, that Trump, again, loves OAN because, well, they give him those softball questions that immediately fit his narrative. And so, yeah, no, we're not going to miss them. All right, anyway, moving on. Republicans continue to say the quiet part out loud as progressives, and let me try that again. Sorry. Now, Republicans continue to say the quiet part out loud as progressives and Democrats continue to try to call for making voting easier during the pandemic. So the reason, of course, Democrats are asking for that is that if you're asking people to wait in long lines to vote during the middle of a pandemic in which COVID-19, of course, spreads incredibly easily, right? And stays on surfaces and in the air for hours. Well, I mean, you would think that would be very dangerous, asking people to stand in those conditions in order to vote. So the obvious answer, of course, would be to come up with other ways for people to actually be able to vote. Like, for example, vote by mail, which doesn't really involve human contact, right? Republicans, however, they're not thrilled with this idea because, well, as they just admitted, it would put them at a disadvantage. So the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is reporting that Georgia State House Speaker David Ralston became the latest Republican official to warn about the perils that vote by mail initiatives would have on his party. Quote, "This will be extremely devastating to Republicans and conservatives in Georgia. Every registered voter is going to get one of these. Well, that will certainly drive up turnout." Now, get the irony, right? He's saying that as if it's a bad thing. Like, oh, can you believe it? More voter turnout? Making it easy to vote? Horrible, terrible idea. Ooh. No, I don't want people involved in the democratic process. Yeah. Look, it's bad for Republicans because right now they're a party full of reactionaries that basically do everything they can to give rich people everything. Okay. Now, look, to be fair, Democrats also serve the donors and give lots of money to rich people. We know that. But on a lot of issues, Democrats certainly aren't as monstrous as Republicans. I think we can all at least agree on that, even though I'm a huge critic of the Democratic Party, right? Their policies, not great, right? Democrats, but remember, not all Democrats are created equal, by the way. Some are absolutely fantastic. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Pramila Jayapal. There are many others, right? Some not fantastic. Doug Jones, Henry Cuellar, Chuck Schumer, of course, Nancy Pelosi, on and on, right? Generally, though, with Republicans, you seem to find that most are monstrous. Terrible, right? So now this guy in Georgia is saying, well, look, the reason that we cannot make voting easier is because if we do, we will never win. We would rather endanger our own voters by telling them to go to the polls, to sometimes wait in line, and spread COVID-19. Now, understand how insidious this is, right? Since older people, and yes, everybody can get it, and it can be deadly for younger people too, it's just less deadly to younger people. And it's more deadly to older people, which make up the Republican base. So understand that they are literally putting their power over your lives, over their lives, all right? So it's money and power over everything else. So understand that the masks are off now, right? All the masks have slipped. They don't care about you. They care about their power, and now openly admit that they want to keep people away from the polls. And they want to put roadblocks in place because if they don't, that they will lose. They don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in voting. And so they're all saying the same thing. Remember, this guy is just one of the Republicans that are saying things like this. You also have the president of the United States saying, yeah, voting? No, don't like it. We want less of it. Take a look.
I will tell you this. If you look at before and after, the things they had in there were crazy. They had things, levels of voting that if you ever agreed to it, you'd never have a Republican elected in this country again. They had things in there about, election days and what you do and all sorts of clawbacks. And they had things that were just totally crazy.
Totally crazy. I mean, can you believe it? Voting days, more voting days, things like that. Crazy. Oh, vote by mail. Crazy stuff. I mean, a Republican would never get elected if we actually made it easier to vote. That's what he's saying. They're continuing to enact the plan put forward by the godfather of the modern conservative movement. And it would be Paul Weyrich. Now, I always go back to this when we were talking about voting and voting rights because it is so, it's the most obvious example. It's the original, the OG father of voter suppression, right? Where he said, Goo syndrome, right? It's the famous Goo syndrome speech. I don't want good government, right? I don't want good government, and I don't want people voting because more people turn out, the less we win, the less we get to dismantle government, privatize it, and help our donors. And that's essentially what it is. If you have less people turning out, we win. More people turn out, we lose. Very, very simple. And Republicans have continued that. Now, of course, they try to couch it in terms of, well, we're trying to verify the integrity of our elections because we think there's lots of voter fraud. In reality, voter fraud is very, very, very rare. Super unlikely. You are more likely to get killed by, a vending machine falling on you. You're more likely to get COVID-19 than you are to experience in-person voter fraud. You're much more likely, actually. And so incredibly rare. And multiple studies have pointed that out. And so what you have is a political party that puts everything that they can, or that does everything they can to prevent you from actually going to the polls and exercising your American right to be able to choose your own representation. So I don't think there's any reason that anybody should choose to vote for a party that doesn't believe in that fundamental right. But it's because they've been so successful at blocking people from voting, young people, older, like people that are poor, students, and mainly people who tend to vote for Democrats, and doing that voter suppression, these voter purges, and all that stuff. That's why they have the power that they do. Okay, and that means we've got to find a way to overcome that massive disadvantage. And the only way I can think of is to overwhelm them in such numbers that their tricks at voter suppression won't work. Now, that is obviously a lot more difficult. I said the same thing about, hey, look, let's get young people out to vote for Bernie Sanders. And that didn't necessarily work out as well. Yes, there was increased youth turnout, but at the same time, there was also increased voter suppression on college campuses and an increased turnout by older Americans who are generally more conservative. And so I don't know what to do. I don't know if we definitely could have the numbers, but people actually have to be able to turn out and not face that gigantic voter suppression and that's already in place. And so that's the problem, right? All I want to do, unlike Republicans, us progressives, we believe that everyone should have their vote counted and that it should be much more easier to vote than it is now. That it shouldn't take the entire day to go in and vote. That, it should be much, much easier to have your ballot cast and to make sure that your ballot and your vote is counted. Apparently in this country, we have people who don't believe in that the fundamental ideals of democracy. And so we've got to fight even harder against them. All right. So let's go to the economy. You might have noticed it's a little bad out there. A little rough. All right. Many Americans got a shock today as news of the newest round of layoffs has hit the internet. And not only that, but you also have the newest unemployment numbers, and they are stark. The Department of Labor just announced today that 6.6 million Americans have filed jobless claims in the last week. Now, that adds to the 3.3 million that have filed claims the week before. This is happening, of course, as businesses have been shut down due to COVID-19 in order to protect their workers, right? And comply with some of the state lockdown orders. So now there are still essential businesses, of course, that are working, that are running right now, things like grocery stores and gas stations. And again, trying to keep food, and things flowing essentially so that people can continue to get supplies. But right now, other than that, the economy is basically frozen, right? With all these people out of work, obviously the unemployment number is going to go up. And so the number coming out of March is just staggering. 10.4 million people have applied for unemployment. 10.4 million. That, of course, easily surpasses the number of jobs lost through the entirety of the Great Recession in 2007 to 2009. I mean, it makes the Great Recession look piddly. And look, I grew up during the Great Recession, right? Came of age, was working. And so I was affected. Everybody I knew was affected. And now we have something that makes that disaster look tiny. Yikes. Yikes. Now, this is an economic disaster, the likes of which I don't think we've ever seen before. And so let me give you more details here. Now, this is the Atlantic's Derek Thompson who wrote, quote, "The labor market is contracting at the rate of one Great Recession per 10 days. Yeah. Heidi Sherholtz of the Economic Policy Institute also said that in her 2 decades of studying the labor market, she has, quote, never seen anything like it. The spike in unemployment the U.S. has experienced over the last 2 weeks. The chart is a portrait of disaster, and there's a chart that's going around that just shows the massive spike in unemployment. Now, unemployment insurance claims, she said, for the last 2 weeks are just mind blowing. Look, I'm not sure if everybody really knows how bad this is, right? This is really bad. Unfortunately, there's also millions of people that are about to find out how bad it is the hard way. Millions have already lost their insurance through work. So statistically, right, you have 10 million people that are now out of work, probably more, because there are people that cannot file unemployment claims. It's expanded, but not expanded to everyone who has lost their jobs. And so you have 10 million people. Statistically, half of those would get their insurance through work, right? Well, you don't work, you don't have insurance. And of course, COBRA is a joke. So COBRA was designed for people that were transferring between two jobs, right? Not for people who lost their job. So COBRA, basically what it does is it allows you to pay for your employer-sponsored insurance, but without your employer kicking in their part, which of course leaves people on the hook for thousands of dollars in health insurance costs, because now they're just paying it on their own. It was, again, designed to not let your insurance lapse while you were waiting at your new job for your insurance to kick in. And normally that takes about 90 days if your new employer offers health insurance. And so it wasn't designed for people who are laid off. It wasn't designed for people who are the newly unemployed. And so that is a joke. Telling people to go on COBRA is an insult, basically. And so these people have lost their health insurance. They've lost their health care. And so it makes you wonder, like, maybe this entire, idea of coupling health insurance to to their jobs is a bad idea. Right. So now, that said, right, this is going to be painful for a very long time. The economy is not just going to bounce back once this is over, once the lockdown is lifted. Yes, there are some people that are going to go back to work, but remember, there are a lot of businesses that will not survive this lockdown, the lockdown that it takes to be able to, get a handle on COVID-19. And so these businesses will go out of business. Remember, mostly small businesses, right? And I know part of the relief bill has loans for small businesses, right? It's actually really difficult to be able to qualify for those. And there's not a lot of help for actual small businesses. So we're going to see a lot of job losses that are permanent. And you're going to have the remainder of people who had those jobs now fight over what little jobs there are in food service, low wage jobs, etc. And so these people are still not going to have health insurance. They're still not going to have any benefits, and they're going to be fighting over low paying jobs. And so that's a big problem, right? It's a huge problem. I think that's why we need national health insurance, among other things. In fact, Shareholds did say that the unparalleled rise in jobless claims call for a huge response from Congress. Now, the problem is Congress is off until the 20th. They went and signed that corporate bailout bill, and then they're like, job's done. Time for vacation. Yay. Well, and you're not really having much of a vacation, so it's mainly going to be staycation. And so, I mean, being off for that amount of time while the economy falls apart, not good. Very bad. In fact, Shareholds says, given the extraordinary deterioration of the labor market in a matter of weeks, federal policymakers will absolutely need to come back and provide more desperately needed relief and more support for the recovery once the lockdown is over. Now, look, Democrats are talking about that. To be fair, give her credit. Nancy Pelosi's like, yeah, we're going to have to start doing more stuff. Let's start putting together another bailout package for, regular people. And let's be honest, for large corporations. But the Republicans, Mitch McConnell's like, no, I think we've done enough. No, that's it. And we bailed out the biggest corporations. What else do we need? Well, you're forgetting the workers. Oh, we gave them unemployment benefits. that 4 of your senators fought against. You know the person who actually got that into the stimulus? That's Bernie Sanders. He got that extra $600, but it's only for 4 months. And then, if this crisis continues, what then? What then? Again, I don't think we'll be able to dig ourselves out of this hole in 4 months. Seriously. And so, again, it's a big problem. A lot of problems. And so we have a Republican Party that's really not interested in solving these problems, especially if the market stabilizes. And so you really have to depend, it really depends on how the market reacts. If it continues to crash, then of course that's going to be the one thing that brings Republicans back. But it's, again, whatever legislation comes out of that is once again going to be massively weighted towards corporations. And so who knows, right? Who knows when we're going to get any sort of help. But what is coming, of course, is the one-time $1,200 that you get in cash payments. Unfortunately, we have no idea when it's going to be here, right? Now, they're saying, oh, we're going to start sending them out April 17th, right? And maybe it'll get there by the end of the month. That is unless, of course, you don't have your direct deposit information. Now, they say they're setting up a website to be able to have people go and register their banking information to get direct deposits because checks could take months longer. But the point is that emergency one-time payment is not coming fast enough. And so, big problem, right? Whereas, of course, I do believe the corporations are already getting their bailouts. And, of course, the banks, the Federal Reserve is literally handing over the $1 trillion worth of quantitative easing to the banks every single day. So they're getting that help. They're immediately getting bailed out. But the rest of us, we got to wait. We got to wait for quite some time. And so before you think, by the way, my solution is $2,000 UBI immediately. Rashida Tlaib's plan, right? She says we'll immediately send out a debit card loaded with $2,000. Every American citizen, doesn't matter if you're rich or poor, right? We're gonna send you $2,000. Now, of course, you might say, well, why are rich people going to get it? Because that's the fastest way is just to send it out to everybody, right? But they can tax that money back later. And so it's not really a concern if a millionaire gets a $2,000 check. What are they going to do? They're going to pick their teeth with it, right? Or something. So it's not really a concern, but it does get money into the hands of people as soon as possible that need it, right? And so remember, though, if you do believe that $2,000 a month is too much, well, consider that it's going to get worse. And on top of that $2,000 UBI until this is over, you also need to do a rent freeze and a mortgage freeze. Now, I know New York, I believe, is talking about doing a mortgage freeze, but without a rent freeze, it's not really going to help tenants. Because, I mean, yeah, you could do a mortgage freeze on some of these, some of these companies, and they'll still charge people rent. It doesn't help. It doesn't help. And so that's a problem, okay? And now I've got more responses here. This is Miguel Feria Castro, an economist with the Federal Reserve of St. Louis. Now, he wrote in an analysis, right, that 47 million Americans could lose their jobs by the end of June. 47 million people out of work. The unemployment rate would be at 32.1%. That is worse than the Great Depression. These are very large numbers by historical standards, wrote Faria de Castro. But this is rather a unique shock that is unlike any other experience by the U.S. economy in the last 100 years. So I'm seeing this around, and it actually makes a lot of sense. This is basically if the Depression and the Spanish flu were happening at the same time. So, yeah, right. Pretty much. Now, economist Sherrod Bernstein, the senior fellow at the Center for Budget and Policy and Priorities, also tweeted that, quote, there's a debate in Congress about whether to quickly add more economic stimulus or wait to see what happens with what we've done so far. I'm congenitally a careful wait-and-see type, Bernstein says, but then adds, in all caps, but not now. What should go in a phase 4 stimulus? Nutritional support, state fiscal support, more help to thousands through round 2 checks, and increased unemployment insurance beyond the end of July. Now, are we going to say see Congress take those necessary steps? I don't think so. I don't believe so. The first priority, of course, was obvious: protect big corporations and throw a little bit of help towards everyone else. I really don't feel confident that any phase 4 is going to be all that different from what we've seen from phase 3. Maybe another check, right, for $1,200, but nothing guaranteed for the next couple of months. Because, by the way, that one check, that's going to cover rent for April, right, or rent for June. I'm sorry, rent for May. Had a Biden moment here, but it's not going to cover rent for any other time. It's not going to cover food. It's not going to cover insurance, right? And I don't mean health insurance. What about car insurance? Now, I live in Michigan. We have the highest car insurance rates. So my wife and I, we paid $200 for 2 cars, over $200. And so, I mean, you've still got insurance, health insurance if you got it, right? There's still that payment. There's still, credit cards. There's no credit card freezes. Yes, student loans are frozen until September 30th, but that's only for federal loans. If you owe a private institution, that's not frozen. So yeah, as some of you are saying, $1,200 is an absolute joke, Dana. You're absolutely right. And so, yes, we need something that is far more comprehensive, and we've got to have a rent and a mortgage freeze and a freeze on credit cards and all that stuff, because people need to dig themselves out of a hole. But before we even do that, we have to survive this first. And what little Congress is doing is not allowing us to do that. We need massive action that is towards us and not towards just multinational corporations. Okay. All right. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take a quick break. We're going to come back. We have the Obama aid story. We got Jay Carney that I'm going to make fun of. And then we have the Biden appearance, which is disastrous. So there's all that. Stay right here. We'll be back in just a minute. Round the Nation.
Mike Pounds.
Why? Oh, you're getting nervous, man.
Oh, well, I'm sorry.
Welcome back to the show. Round the Nation right here, TWT Nation. Jeff Waldorf here with you. All right, so before I thank some patrons and channel members, I do just want to read this comment here from Mr. Baskins. We found Mr. Baskins. He says, damn straight, Sally Mae has just sent me multiple, I'm assuming multiple bills. Probably. I had the displeasure of dealing with Sally Mae before, so I hear you, man. I understand. I get you. Let's see. Okay. Let's go to Patreon and thank some patrons. I'd really like to see us get to 400 patrons. We're at like 350, somewhere around there. So we can get to 400 patrons on patreon.com/TYTNation to support the show. That will ensure the long-term health and viability of this very show. So that's why it's important to sign up. So let me thank a couple of patrons here. Well, first I want to thank Aaron Hall and Avi. So thank you, Aaron. Thank you, Avi. That's patreon.com/TYTNation. Memberships here. Let's thank Joe Greer III and Mike Huey. So thank you. I also want to thank everybody for donating to the GoFundMe. We've hit the goal for the month. So thank you to everybody who's donated to help the show survive during this really, really tumultuous period. All right. With that, let's dive in. Let's make fun of Jay Carney. Jay Carney is the former White House press secretary for President Obama, and he is now working for Amazon. And so he got a lot of heat on social media after defending the firing of an Amazon warehouse employee. Now, Carney now serves as Amazon's senior vice president of global corporate affairs. Well, that's a nice plum job, right? Fantastic. Good for him. Now, he defended the retail behemoth's firing of a warehouse employee who had organized a worker protest. Now, that worker protest, of course, was demanding safer conditions among the COVID-19 outbreak. In a tweet on Wednesday night, Carney decided he would go after Senator Bernie Sanders. Now, if you go for the king, you better not miss. Well, he missed. Now, this was after Bernie Sanders, of course, defended Chris Smalls. Now, Chris Smalls was the team manager at a fulfillment center in Staten Island, and he was fired after helping stage a walkout at that very same facility. Now, Sanders, in response to this firing, just said, quote, "That is absolutely immoral." To which prompted Mr. Carney to tweet this, quote, "Senator Sanders, I'm confused. I thought you wanted us to protect our workers." I don't know why I'm using that light voice, but whatever. Mr. Smalls purposely violated social distancing rules repeatedly and was put on paid 14-day quarantine for COVID exposure. 3:30, he returned to the site. Knowingly putting our team at risk is unacceptable. Okay, but wait. The entire reason that Mr. Smalls was doing this walkout was because of unsafe conditions inside the warehouse. Those conditions include having everything, the surfaces not being clean, right? So they're insufficiently cleaning the facility, cleaning the warehouse, which could, again, spread COVID-19, and not giving employees personal protective equipment. And so they're not providing the PPE that they need to prevent transmission while also making people work in these warehouses. So instead of addressing those concerns and saying, hey, you know what, you're right, we should really beef up our safety protocols in the midst of a pandemic, they instead took the person raising that as an issue and said, oh, you're fired. And then used the COVID-19, as a reason to fire that employee. Oh, you're putting them at risk. Well, wait, what about all the other times Amazon puts their workers at risk? You're going to ignore those too? I mean, look, it got a lot of pushback here. This is economist Marshall Steinbaum, who said, quote, "Why are you attacking your own workers for putting each other at risk of infection when your company is the one doing that?" And of course, another thing that was cited by respondents was a HuffPost article that was written on March 26th, where the conditions inside of Amazon warehouses was reported as being really bad. And they also called out the reluctance of the company to take proactive measures to protect their workers. Now, as a result of that, 10 Amazon workers were diagnosed with COVID-19 as of Thursday. And employees say that many more are likely sick. The company is not making cases public. News about cases have filtered out via warehouse workers, according to the article. The company just shut down a Kentucky warehouse because of the outbreak, only after staffers protested because 3 workers had tested positive for COVID-19. So, Jay, you want to talk about worker safety? Is that really what you want to talk about? All right, well, fine. Let's talk about the long history of unsafe working conditions at Amazon and how they're putting profits over people. ProPublica, BuzzFeed also had revealed Amazon ignored concern over delivery driver safety, which included fatal crashes in favor of speed. The Guardian reported the company let a man dying of a heart attack lie on the floor alone with no assistance for 20 minutes. Mother Jones showed in March how the company has become one of the most dangerous employers in the U.S., with little worker protections after injury. The Atlantic found in December that conditions had hardly improved, with workers reporting maiming and other physical issues from the company's breakneck sweatshop pace. And do you know why the conditions are so bad? It's because that makes them money. Jeff Bezos makes money from these terrible conditions. I mean, look, you don't become a multi-billionaire by being fair to people, right? No, you do it by stepping on people, by exploiting labor, by cutting corners, right? All that extra money saved from not having these things put in place, not having proper PPE, allowing these drivers to drive dangerously, having these sweatshop conditions. That's what makes you rich. I'm sorry, but look, billionaires are a policy failure. Let's be honest. Nobody needs to be a billionaire. And you only get to be a billionaire by exploitation. That's why we need union workers. That's why we need organization. But since this guy was trying to organize workers to raise awareness, that was the reason that he got fired. I mean, Amazon is famous for its union busting. And so Smalls, by the way, in an open letter to Amazon, said this: I believe they targeted me because the spotlight is on me. The thing is, it won't work. I'm getting calls from Amazon workers across the country, and they all want to stage walkouts too. We are starting a revolution, and people around the country want to support us. It's true. And so, look, as far as labor is concerned, now is the time to show our power. Again, people are actually starting to realize, thanks to the economic shutdown, that the jobs people take for granted normally, right? Warehouse workers, delivery drivers, nurses, grocery store workers, people at the drive-thru, all of them, they are vital to our everyday lives. You know who's not vital? Billionaires. They're not doing anything for the economy. No, it's the people at the bottom, the financiers, right? What use are they? When in reality, you've got the people at the bottom that are stocking shelves. Those are the people that are important. And as such, since they are essential, and that's not my wording, that's the government's wording, right? And that's, the not only government, but also the store owners, right? Hey, you're essential. Well, maybe they should start being treated like they're essential and get some basic rights. For example, the right to a living wage, the right to representation at the workplace, the right to health care. And look, those are not big asks, right? Amazon is a multi-billion-dollar company. They can afford to do those things, especially since they haven't paid any taxes. And so they've also got massive tax breaks thanks to Donald Trump. They can afford it. They can afford it. And so now is the time. Now is the time to do these walkouts. Now is the time to show them that we are, yes, if you think that we're essential, then you might want to start treating us like we're essential. And so I definitely support Chris Smalls. Jay Carney is proving that he is a highly paid hack, corporate hack, as usual. As a lot of these former Obama administration officials have shown us over the past few years, that they don't care about workers at all and only care about getting money from their giant corporate overlords. Okay. Speaking of giant corporate overlords, we're going to talk about Joe Biden. The frontrunner of the Democratic Party seems to be having some problems answering basic questions about healthcare. Let's take a look.
I work full-time for a small company that does not offer health benefits. My husband is a freelancer. We currently pay over $2,000 a month for health insurance for our family of 3. My question for you is that when our savings account inevitably runs out due to him not being able to work right now, what is it that we sacrifice? Do we sacrifice food, rent, or health care?
You should not have to sacrifice anything. Let me say that again. You should not have to sacrifice anything. Not just because it's the fair thing to be taking care of your entire family and every family in your circumstance, but because it's best for the whole country, the entire economy. It's not just doing a favor for any individual. Number one, your health care, you should not have to pay a penny for testing, and it should be available to you by now. We were promised it a while ago. It should be available for you to be tested and determine what needs to be done. Number two, the House just passed an unemployment proposal that increases by $600 the unemployment insurance you'd get, whether or not you were part of, you had been covered by unemployment insurance or paid into it before, including your husband who may have been, he's a entrepreneur on his own, doesn't have employees. You will be covered. And that should be done, but that requires the federal government to help the states set up the unemployment offices in a way that they can handle this enormous call on the need for being the unemployment insurance. Thirdly, the cost of a test should be absolutely zero for you, number one. And number two, I think the House and the Senate.
I'm sorry, what? What happened to number 3? Number 3 was number 1. What happened to 3? Kind of reminds me of Rick Perry, right? You guys remember Rick Perry, right, with the oops? Where he was trying to name the 3 agencies that he would get rid of. I think the irony was that the one that he couldn't remember is the one he actually became in charge of, the Department of Energy. So, oops. So that's your Joe Biden oops moment. So, wow. Democrats, is this your king? Is this your king? All right. Anyway, let's get into some substance, right? So Joe Biden says, well look, his answer to that young woman is testing should be free. Okay, well then what? I mean, this family says that they pay $2,000 a month for insurance, right? That is astronomical. Look, I barely make any more than that in a month. So to pay $2,000 for insurance, that's insane. So, okay, if you get tested for free and then you have it, well, what happens then, right? Now she says, look, I have the symptoms. I can't get a test. And he says, well, you should get a test. It should be available to you. But it's not. What are you going to do? What would you do if you were president to make sure testing was available, right? And that's kind of the whole reason that we have these Q&As. That you should explain what you would do, what policies you would put into place, and how you would handle the situation. But apparently he's not interested in that. He's just saying, well, I mean, it should be free and you should have it already. But okay, right? So if you get tested positive, what's your plan? No plan. And the reason that we need a plan is because right now, even with insurance, it can cost up to $10,000 to get treated, assuming there, of course, is no complications, right? That's with insurance. Without insurance, it can cost anywhere from $20,000 to $70,000, assuming depending on if there are complications, right? Which could end up being in the more expensive range. So for somebody who says, "Hey, look, my husband's out of work. He's a freelancer, right? We get this huge insurance premium, $2,000 a month. What do we do when our money runs out? What should we spend our money on? Because this is unsustainable." Telling them that testing should be free, not an answer. That's not an answer. And so testing and treatment should be free, right? Testing and treatment should be free. And of course, it would be free under a Medicare for all system. But look, that was an opportunity for Biden to actually show that he is willing to lead, that to showcase what should be his electability, right? Good job. I mean, he should have said, "Look, this is the deal. Our system's a bunch of malarkey, but here's my plan to fix it," right? "I'm going to do this for you." Instead, we got what we got. Disaster, right? By the way, he was touting that the House put in extra unemployment benefits, right? Well, you know who also did that? The Senate. The Senate did that. And the House basically went with the Senate bill. And so who got that in there, by the way, that provision on unemployment insurance with the extra $600 in it? Oh, right. That would be Senator Bernie Sanders, your opponent in the primary. Yeah, he did that. And he actually fought against Republican senators, 4 of them, who said, "Oh, no, that's too dangerous. We will hold up the bill if you don't eliminate that." Bernie Sanders literally stood his ground for you and said, "No, you're not going to do that. I'll hold up the whole damn thing because I don't like it. But if you at least give us this, the unemployment insurance, I'll let it go. I'll vote for it. I won't hold up the bill." You know what? You know who won that? Bernie Sanders. So you might want to thank him, Joe, for actually defending that provision that you were in favor of, that you just said that you were in favor of. So look, Joe Biden, that's just one of the many appearances where he was an absolute disaster. You could see, look, maybe it's just me, but the look on Anderson Cooper's face during that segment was pained. He was just like, "Oh, Joe, no. Joe, don't. Oh, God." It was that bad. So now think about what's going to happen if Joe Biden becomes the Democratic nominee and he's going to go after Donald Trump. Now, remember, right now he can say, "Well, look, the primary's over, so I don't have to debate Bernie Sanders. I don't have to do anything. I'll go on TV once in a while and do a softball interview, but that's it." Well, you're not going to be able to hide from Donald Trump. Donald Trump's going to come after you with a 2x4. He's not ready for that. He's going to get creamed. And again, he's got no answer for this. He didn't even bring up his public option. The thing that you're supposed to be running on in the middle of a pandemic to assure people, "Hey, don't worry. Under my public option, you're going to have affordable health care." Couldn't even bring that up because he's probably not going to do it, for one. But even so, you're still going to leave 10 million people out of health insurance. And so no good answers for that. He is not prepared to take on Donald Trump, and certainly not prepared to take on the moment. It's more than just defeating Donald Trump. And I've said this before, but now it's even more apparent. We have an economic and health crisis. Joe Biden and his milquetoast approach, his moderate centrism, is not prepared to meet the moment. We need bold action. We need big moves. We need big ideas to handle this big problems that we have now. And so, look, what's scary about this is that we're all pointing this out. We're all saying Biden is not ready. Biden is not the right person for the right time. It's time. Look, back in 2008, Joe Biden, even back in 2008, Joe Biden was not ready because like the guy hadn't won a primary. The guy hadn't even won a state until now. And so you're going to tell me that that guy is ready for a revolutionary moment when we literally have what they call a revolutionary candidate? I don't think he is at all. I don't think Bernie Sanders is revolutionary. I think Bernie Sanders is a centrist, is a true centrist. I think he's truly in the center and can get people from all different demographics and all different political walks because he's right on the issues. He is right. And he's got the most popular policy. That's the guy that we need, not someone who supposedly plays to the middle, which in reality is just more right-wing nonsense. Biden not being able to talk about his plans, that is scary. And if he becomes the nominee, I fear that we are absolutely screwed. Okay. God damn. All right, guys. Let's see. I'll read a couple of super chats before I go. Mr. Elder, thank you for becoming a member. Loot the Rich Sarah says, my last few bucks before I get paid. Well, thank you. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. And then Elwell says, I hope you're clipping this Biden segment so I can tweet it and share it far and wide. How can anyone think this man is a viable candidate against Trump? Good news, I clip out every segment and I post it up on YouTube. So feel free to share that on Twitter and share those videos everywhere. I mean, this guy you're right. He's an absolute disaster. And so look, I can go into this, like having conversations with Biden voters, right? So I had a conversation with a never Bernie person, right? Who's a Biden voter, never Bernie in her bio. And she's saying, well, look, it's Bernie Sanders. He can't beat Donald Trump. He's not going to be able to do that. He's not going to get anything passed. It's the normal arguments that you hear from Biden supporters. And those are the same messages that are regurgitated through mainstream media. And so, unfortunately, what we have to do, we've got to find some way of getting over that massive disadvantage that we call corporate media. And corporate media is pretty much the reason why people think that Joe Biden would be a better candidate against Donald Trump. And it's just disastrous. And it's so wrong and dangerous. I really worry about the future of this country, especially now we're in the situation that we're in. But anyway, I sorry to leave you out on a bad note to bum people out, but serious times, man, not fun. Okay. One more comment here. Valerie says, it's not as if he can't beat Trump. It's what if he beats Trump that scares him. Look, you're definitely right. If you're talking about people in the media that are parroting, like that are putting out this narrative, right? I think the average voter really is afraid because they've been convinced, they've been gaslighted into thinking that Bernie Sanders is somehow a weaker opponent against Donald Trump. I think generally, I'll go back to the story yesterday. They didn't have policy disagreements with Bernie Sanders. It was all about tone. It was all about tone policing. And it was also about, well, we just don't think he can beat Trump, even though I agree with him. And so they have been lied to by the media, had it drilled into their head that Bernie Sanders is not electable. And that, someone like him could never win. Notice how they're not even talking about, well, it's socialism. Why? It's because we're giving out socialism right now, mainly for the rich. So you can see that with all the money flying around, even the $1,200 payments. You might consider that a form of socialism. And so there's all that. But it's all, about the mainstream corporate media narrative constantly being against Bernie Sanders. And so we've got to find a way to defeat that. I wish we were bigger. That's why that's why I asked for Patreon, right? We've got to get bigger, and we've got to get more reach, and we've got to get, more financial stability in order to do that. And so that's why it's important to support independent media as much as you can. And really, I think the biggest part is getting out the word, spreading the word, talking to people, and getting people tuned in to independent media. And that's what's important. All right. All right, guys. I got to go. Have a great Thursday. Stay safe. Wash your hands. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. Love you guys. And remember, change begins with you. Good night, nation.
Mike Pounds.
Tolerate.
Wait, you're getting nervous, man.
Please clap. You're kicking me out the door. You're kicking me out the door.